how do we say it's interesting? My thinking is going this way. In 1993, I didn't even recognize Pac when he was in front of me. Obviously, not to say I knew Digital Underground, I remember his parts, but I never paid attention. Like my focus was probably on, Humpty or whatever other person. But in 1994, I didn't know who Tupac was at that point by visual because of his music and I remember even my next door neighbor was a huge Tupac fan. And for me, I was just like, whatever. Like, give me De La Soul, give me Tribe Called Quest. Like, that was my ear vibe. Like, Tupac was cool, I get it, but I'm not a thug. I'm not rock. You know what I mean? Like, but I respect what you're doing. I respect it more than anything. So when I was reached out to by his label, they let me know that he was coming to town, that I want to photograph it and try and distribute the work through the photo stock agency, not necessarily Thrasher. So I said, sure. So they set up a car service, came pick me up in New Jersey. And I ended up going to Harlem where they were taping for the music channel, The Box. And at this point, I'd never been up to that. I've been to 125th Street, but 155th Street, it's like 30 blocks up. I just never been that far into Harlem. But I remember getting there and just like the chaos and the news media, the cameras, just this air was like, it was like very, like you could sense the energy in the air, like something was happening. And I'm like, I'm not one for like static or whatever. So I'm like just watching. And then slowly I'm like watching the circus that it really was. Mm-hmm. So I'm more paying attention to photographing the circus to be able to tell other people, like, look how crazy this shit is, not so much of, okay, my assignment, like, it wasn't assigned. Like they said, do you want to come? I wasn't getting paid. It was my film, my pocket. Like I got to stretch the film out. And even with the Tupac thing, I literally shot 26 frames. So I still had 10 frames left over. But I watched the day as it started with the news cameras and the chaos going on. And little by little, I just watched and, photographed this little thing, that little thing. And I just not that I was getting close in his space, but he definitely watched me watching him and watching them. With that, he understood my perspective was not so much, Tupac, show me, give me the pictures that I know I can sell of you. Give me a middle finger, show me the thug life, spit at me, get angry, because news media will put that front page every day. And we knew that's what I wasn't there for. Like, so I was able to stay within his space, but not interfere in what he was doing, meaning that he had to obviously talk to the cameras. He's filming a segment. His boys are there. He wants to make sure his boys get their shine. So he's orchestrating a lot at the same time. So I'm flowing within his workspace. So, when they do the freestyle, when they do this, like moments of him being happy watching his boy, like how often do you see him happy about his boys? Like normally you'll see him and his boys, like just joy. Like he's joy. Like when they finish the freestyle, they're hugging. Like when do you see happy? It's like, you see that in a family album. Yeah. Like, what it's like. Oh, grandmother or cousin, joy. You know what joy feels like. So even when it was all over and the cameras left and it was just him and his boys, they're starting to roll up an L. And it's just like, again, I'm not in his face. I'm far enough away where I'm just watching him. And he knows that I'm watching him. And at this point, like, again, only 26 frames that I shoot that afternoon. Only 26 frames out of 36. So everything was very calm and selective. Even to the point where, like, watching him roll the blunt, like just waiting for the right light to hit across his face. Because it's not like we're not in the set, we're not in the studio. And I had slide film. So the thing about slide film, when you shoot something, you only get one opportunity. Like it's shot, you can't go back in. Like it's not like a negative. You put a negative in, you project it, it burns onto the paper, and you can have all these adjustments. This, once it's shot, whatever you got is what you got, and that's it. Like that was the thing about shooting in the '90s. Like it wasn't like, oh, let me go take this picture, go home and digitize it, touch it. No, here, Mr. Photo Editor of XYZ magazine. Here's a picture of so and so. Okay, if they run it, I'll get paid for it, and that's what it was. I had to leave this behind at magazines all the time, and then at a certain point they all call up and say, hey, can you come pick up all your shit because we're not going to use it, and you have to go pick up all your shit, in that way. But again, getting back to the Tupac thing, watching him roll up his blunt or whatever, waiting for the right lighting, and you're just waiting, and it's like, oh, okay, there it is, and you just snap, and then you're waiting for, you don't know what the next thing you're waiting for, but then you step back, and then it's like him and his boys, by the wall, smoking an L or whatever, and just sort of watching them, and then I noticed, because of the way that the light was behind me and how it was coming towards, not sunset, but the way the light was going down because we were in New York, it gave a nice shadowing warm effect. So you had these weird shadows coming across Tupac and his friends, but you still were able to see them separately, and you could see the kids in the shadow in the background. I'm like, oh, that looks fucking cool. Boom, and I shot that. You know what I mean? Very selective way of storytelling. It's not like, yeah, it's easy for me to get in space, but like, boom, 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 boom. Oh, okay, I can put that in the magazine that's going to be in the supermarket next week. But that wasn't what it was about. And again, I wasn't getting paid to be there. I wasn't guaranteed it was going to run. And for years, None of that material made it in magazines. And this was in 1994. It never made magazines until after his death. I'm like, oh, do you have images? I'm like, yeah, one or two things I might be able to share with you. I have to be very conscious about the images, about the work now, especially that it's in the fine art market. Now that I've done my fourth book, the Gold Book, which we'll go over next, and that the way that my experience of capturing the golden era of hip hop is so revered now, I have to take it from a level of honored respect because so many people want to know the story.